But last week we talked about future you and the woman you want to become by the end of this year. But how do we do that when summer disrupts all of our routines typically? The kids or grandkids, they're visiting, traveling is happening. Meals could get random because there's longer hours in the day, right? And because of that, sleep might get weird. And then with all these activities, oftentimes I hear people talk about their quiet time gets disrupted as well. And so suddenly the things that normally help us feel grounded no longer fit into the life we're actually living here in the summer season. So we, of course, love all those moments, but if we're honest, it can also be frustrating to feel like our dreams have to be put up on the shelf one more time, right? So today we're going to be talking about how to reset your routines without feeling like you have to choose between enjoying your life and your family and loved ones or becoming the woman you know you're called to be. Because your becoming does not have to wait until your life is perfect. So I want to show you how to create simple rhythms that can move with your life. They help you feel steady again and keep you connected to that woman you are becoming, even when everything around you can feel chaotic. And I know this because I learned it the hard way, right? I tell people all the time that being a full-time nomad is a little like being lost all of the time. So you wake up and you have to remember where you are. Sometimes you're also trying to remember what time zone you're in. You need groceries, but you don't know which store is nearby and will have the thing you need. And then, of course, sometimes you're trying to get somewhere and the GPS sends you down a road that ends up being far narrower than you feel comfortable with your truck in your home. And because it's so narrow, you have a hard time turning around. So, and then you get to your campsite, you're finally settled in, and then it's often time to pack up and move again. So there's always something to figure out. And before this nomad life, I was a very type A person. I liked to plan. I liked knowing how my day was going to unfold. My routines, they helped me feel grounded and prepared. So when we first started traveling, I kept trying to recreate that same kind of structure into the new life inside the trailer. And I would map out my day, decide when I was going to work and exercise, quiet time. Then the travel day, it would go longer than planned, and then we'd arrive later than expected. Then sometimes we'd wake up to rain and I had no indoor place to work out. Or when I arrived somewhere, and the internet's not working, and I have a client meeting about to happen in 10 minutes. So the part that surprised me was how quickly a good day could start to feel like a bad one simply because I didn't have my plan that I could follow. And I'm sure you have felt that too. You may not be living a nomad life, so you probably aren't waking up in a different state each day, but your day can still change before you've finished your first cup of coffee or tea, if you're like me. If your grandchildren are there, they might get up and ask for breakfast before you've had your quiet time. You might find yourself being the tour guide while your family's in town. And the day ends up being full of things that you genuinely love, yet still end up feeling like you failed because you didn't get to the things that matter to you and you had planned for that day, right? And that was the pattern that I finally began to notice in myself was I began measuring the success of my day by how closely it matched my plan. And so when the plan changed, I felt behind, I felt shame. And when I'm not able to complete my full routine, I tend to be an all or nothing girl. And so I would be tempted to just abandon it altogether. And so I was waiting for my life to be predictable again, enough for me to feel consistent. But predictability was no longer possible. And so when I stopped fighting that, I realized that I had a choice. Instead of trying to control the entire day, I began looking for those simple rhythms that were flexible enough for an interrupted day, right? And meaningful enough to keep me connected to the beautiful life that I was trying to build. And so that is the framework I want to walk you through today. I now think of it as the stay framework. And so we'll start with the S in the word stay. S is seeing the season that you're actually in. Because before you decide what your routine should look like, take an honest look at your life right now. What has changed, right? Maybe your grandchildren are staying with you for a few weeks this summer, or you're traveling more, or your mornings are not completely all yours. So, the mistake we often make is trying to follow a routine designed for a completely different season or last season. And then when it doesn't work out, we assume that we are the problem. But you cannot create a supportive rhythm until you acknowledge what your days really look like. It simply means you stop building your plan around perfect conditions. Ask yourself, what is different about this season and what will need to adjust because of it, right? Once you see that season clearly, you can then move on to T and stay. And T is trim the routine. And so this is where you decide what the smaller version of that routine looks like. I used to believe that if I could not complete the entire routine, that it didn't count. But that kind of thinking made it very easy for me to do nothing. So now I ask, what is the version I can follow through on today? And so it might look like instead of 30 minutes of a workout, doing a 10-minute walk while the grandchildren are riding their bikes right next to me, right? Your quiet time may normally include like several chapters and journaling and prayer. And on a certain morning of the week, you may decide that today is going to be sitting with one verse while you drink your coffee and you meditate upon it. And then while you're driving your car later, you'll play the worship music and pray out loud to the Lord then. So if you are building a business or writing a book or working hard on another personal goal, progress may be one focused task instead of that entire list, right? Smaller doesn't mean it's meaningless. You're still making movement. And so a small step lets you end the day knowing that you still showed up for something that mattered to you. And so you didn't abandon yourself simply because the day looked different, right? So next is A. A is anchor to real life. When your schedule changes constantly, like mine does, time-based routines can become difficult to maintain. You may not be able to say, I'll always do this particular activity at 7 o'clock in the morning, but you can connect it to a habit that means it will still happen. So you might read your scripture after you pour your morning coffee. No matter what time your morning coffee is, you're going to read your scripture then, right? With your skincare routine for nighttime, it can be just when you go to brush your teeth, even if your bedtime is later or earlier than usual. And so that anchor gives the rhythm somewhere to land and connect and be grounded. So this is especially helpful when you're traveling, right? Because you may wake up in a different place, at a different schedule, in a different time zone. And so the time changes, but you still have familiar moments in the day that you can anchor to. And then finally, the why and stay, and that is to yield to the moment. Once you've taken care of what matters, allow yourself to be where you are. So enjoy the visit, be the tour guide, sit at the table a little longer with your loved ones, right? Take an unexpected detour and let your day be interrupted. So those memories, they take place in those moments, right? This is where the framework becomes about more than routines, because when we spend the entire day thinking about everything we're not getting done, we're physically present but emotional somewhere else. And so this leads to resenting people when we genuinely love them, but they change the plan. We may even resent the choices we made willingly because those choices are now interfering with the life we thought we should be living that day. And so yielding means you stop arguing with the moment in front of you. And even though this particular activity is much smaller than you originally planned, now you can engage with the life you're living currently without carrying any guilt into it or resentment into it. So that is the heart of stay. So see the season you're in, trim the routine so it can fit, anchor it to something already happening in your day, and then yield to the moment and allow yourself to be fully present and enjoy it. So you don't have to choose between being present today and then making progress tomorrow. And so when your rhythms support both, you get to experience the joy of the life happening around you and the satisfaction of knowing you're still moving forward in your dreams. And so this is where that shift becomes bigger than your summer schedule. Every time you practice the stay framework, you're building your capacity for more. And so I would dare to say that I am currently living one of the most chaotic yet beautiful seasons of my life right now. One moment I'm with the grandbabies, the next I'm on a client call, then we're packing up for an art show, traveling again, and then getting ready to publish a book. And so there's a lot of things moving all at one time. But I did not get here by trying to fit everything into my day. I got here saying no to things that didn't fit and then refusing to shame myself for those decisions. So there were days, even weeks, when writing didn't fit in the schedule because I was choosing my family and my grandbabies. And I made that choice with a big smile on my face because that's exactly what I want in this season of my life. But I was not sitting there thinking about those chapters that I was not writing. I was building beautiful memories and fully living the life in front of me. And then Jonathan, he had this brilliant idea. He built a desk for me in the truck. So all of a sudden, all the hours we were spending on the road, driving to the next art show, became writing time. So that time, it usually been filled with listening to Audible books. And so I didn't have to find more hours, though. I had to look differently at the hours that I already had. And that is what I want you to think about now. I was able to anchor that writing to the miles we were driving down the road. So, what are you already doing that could also make room for something that your future you wants? And then maybe you're sitting at soccer practice, waiting at a doctor's appointment, riding in the car. There may already be a pocket of time in your life that could hold one small step towards the beautiful life you're building. So here is your practical step. Look at one thing you want to make progress on, and then ask yourself, where could this fit inside something I'm already doing? So do not start by adding more to your calendar because that will take you back into resentment, but start by looking for the space that's already here. And then if you are someone who likes to work through things on your own, I created a worksheet to help you build your stay plan. You can find it inside the Making Life Beautiful Again Facebook group. So I hope you'd come and join us. And so, if you want a little bit of extra support, finding ways to be present for both the life you're currently living and the life you're building, I opened a few 30-minute coaching spots for only $37. So, we'll look at what's feeling chaotic right now, what matters most in this season, and then where your future you goals can fit into the life you already have. So, you can email me at michelle@michelledayrose.com and put stay in the subject line, and we will find a time that works. And so next week, we're going to be talking about something that may be quietly working against your skincare routine, and that is your emotions. Because you can have the best products and the best routine, and even the best intentions, right? But if you are carrying stress, frustration, fear, tension in your face all day long, it can begin to show up in the ways your skincare cannot fix alone. So next week, we're going to be talking about how your emotions can sabotage your skincare results and what you can do to support both your skin and the way you feel. So until then, let yourself enjoy that beautiful life that is already happening around you while you build your future. See you next week.